First, you want to determine what size soap you want to do. So in this demonstration, for our purposes, I'm just going to do a half a can for the Pringles can instead of a full-size can. And to make your aluminum tray, we're going to fold down those edges. And once we have that, we're going to open it up and then fold down one of the ends. And once we have one end down, we are going to then tear the edges there so we can fold them in to start making our aluminum tray. Now you're going to want to take a ruler and measure out to 8. I measure out to 9 inches. And once we get it into the can, you'll see why I've chosen to make that measurement 9. And again, we're just going to finish this off by tearing down the edges and then folding those sides on the inside so we can finish out and make our aluminum tray. Now I do know that making a half a can, you need about 6 ounces of soap, and that would be 3 ounces of one color and 3 ounces of another, but for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to keep both layers white. I do like to pour my first one hot, the first layer, because just pouring this thin layer, it does cool very quickly. So if you start pouring at a low temperature, saying around 120, your soap is going to be hard before you can even get that bottom of the aluminum tray covered. Honestly, it does not take long for this to set up quickly. And I'm spraying it now with rubbing alcohol. As soon as it sets up, you're going to want to score it. I'm just using a barbecue skewer to score. And then once that's done, you're going to want to give it a nice spray again with rubbing alcohol. And then we're going to pour our second layer. I did forget to shoot a temp for this, but again, I do like to pour it a little warmer, saying around 130, as it's very thin, so it does cool quite quickly. Give it another spritz of rubbing alcohol. And again, it sets up very quickly. Once it sets up, we're going to take it out of our aluminum tray. And I like to have my parchment paper ready because that's what I'm going to use to cover it as I put it into the aluminum can. We're going to take off our aluminum foil. And once we have that all taken off, then we're going to do some measurements. And right now, I do know that when you're using a Pringles can, it is perfect to cut it that width at 8.5 inches, because then the edges slip right into place and you won't have any gaps once your final soap is done between the two edges of the rim. Now what I like to do is I like to cut the edges at an angle so they're just not squared off, because this way those two edges fit right inside one another. And again, this helps it so that you don't have any gaps in between the two edges once you put it into the Pringles can. They literally kind of snap right into place. And then we're going to flip it over and to do the other side. So then that way, again, those two angles are opposite of one another. And again, they lay right on top of one another. Again, so just angle your knife, and I hold it up against the ruler just to have a better edge. But of course, soap is slippery, so my ruler tends to keep slipping, but we'll get that edge off. Now I'm just going to cut down the parchment paper. I am going to leave the width edges a little longer and also long on the top so it'll stick out of the Pringles can. But it's nice to have the width-wise a little longer so that when you are molding the soap into a circle, you can overlap those. And again, you want to overlap your edges and wrap your parchment paper around. And then we're going to put it into our Pringles can. And of course, as you do that, then the soap kind of uncurls. And then you're going to, right at the seam side, you're going to start pushing the edges kind of away from each other so that they snap into place. As you'll see, it starts to lay flat on the seam. And I just push it down so that they're laying flat and nice. And once I feel like I have it exactly where I want it, I'll cut off any paper that is sticking outside of the bottom edge. And then once we have that on, I'm just going to place the lid back onto the Pringles can. And after that, then it's up to you as what you want to put into the center of it, whether it's an embed or just more soap. You're going to spray that inside liberally without rubbing alcohol, and or also score the inside. And then you're going to just put your additional soap on the inside, and you're done and ready to go.